I dated a guy who was a complete liar. We matched on Tinder. I was sitting at a bar. I was drinking a strawberry daiquiri, and this annoying younger guy who is 24 years old was talking my ear off. I couldn't escape. So I was purposely swiping and actively chatting on Tinder just so that the guy next to me could get the memo. This 34-year-old guy I matched with asked what I'm up to, and I said, I can't get this guy to stop talking my ear off. He says, oh, do I need to put on my knight in shining armor coat and come rescue you? I said, I'm actually about to just leave. And he said, oh, well, we can meet here or this place that's close to my house. And I said, I've always wanted to check that place out. So I actually updated my destination because I had already called an Uber and made it to this music venue close to his house. And so I enter the bar, and it's scary when you're meeting someone off Tinder because you don't know, right? And he was at the far back end of the bar. So I'm like looking at all these people, like, is it him? Is it him? Is it him? And then boom, I'm finally at the very end, and there he is. And he looked really good. He looked better in real life. And he said I looked better in real life. And I sit next to him, and it was just like instant spark. Like, we got along really well, and he's like asking me what I want to drink. And I bought my first drink because I didn't know him. And I'm like, I'm going to get my first drink. Like, he put his card out to pay. I'm like, I'm going to get my first drink. And he's like, okay. And he had like a whiskey like on the rocks. And we're just like, the chat is flowing perfectly. And then I ask him, are you single? He says, I'm divorced. I'm like, okay, good. And then we just like finish off the night talking. But then when he said he's divorced, I said, how recently divorced? He's like, a few months ago. And then I was like, oh, you're going to need at least 2 years single. Like, I was with my ex for like almost 10 years. I needed 2 years to be single before I could start dating again. He's like, I think it'll be okay. I'm like, okay. Then we start talking. We go to a couple other places, had a really good night. And then I went back to his house. And he had an apartment that was like wicked clean. Like, it looked like an Airbnb. That was my first reaction. But there were like family pictures of like him and his like siblings and parents. So I knew it wasn't an Airbnb. And I spent a lot of time at his apartment. Then I went home. And the next day he wanted to see me again. I don't remember. We saw each other something. We were on the phone texting a lot. But I remember we went on a date the third day. We went out in the daytime. And when he picked me up, it's just my mind is so fuzzy because we saw each other like the next day. It was the next day. The next day, he didn't pick me up. I got an Uber somewhere, and then we went out in his car. Either way, the next time, the day after, it was the day after. I'm going to go look at my text real quick because now my mind is fuzzy. This goes in an order. We're just going to say the next time we went on a date. The next time we went on a date, which I believe was the next day, doesn't matter how I got there, how he got there. Upon meeting, he picked me up. He picked me up that day. It was in the daytime. It was at like 2 p.m. He picked me up. Okay, now it's all coming back to me. He picked me up, and we're driving around trying to figure out where we want to go. And we get to this gorgeous part of the city that's really walkable. It was so sunny. And he holds my hand after he opens the car door for me, and he says, I just have to be honest with you. And I said, okay, about what? And I said, you're single, right? You're divorced. And he said, kind of. And I said, what do you mean kind of? He said, I'm actually in the process of divorce court. We're separated. And I said, was the apartment we went to really yours? He said, that's the next thing I need to bring up with you. And I said, what? He said, it's my parents' house. I'm like, oh. And they weren't home that night, so I thought it would be safe to bring you over. And I'm like, oh. He said, if you don't want to continue with the date, it's totally fine. I'm like, no, it's fine. I get it. I just didn't understand why he lied. And yeah, that night we ended up like spending a lot of like the whole day together, and he wanted to sleep over. But I have kids, and obviously I'm not going to introduce a guy that I just met to my kids. And so I waited for my kids to go to bed, and then I snuck him in the house because my bedroom is the whole top floor. Like, my bedroom's like an Airbnb. It's like this huge room, walk-in closet, bathroom. It's all attached. And I want to say this was the third night. I want to say this day after our first date, we did something. No, it had to have been the second night. And so he slept over. No, it wasn't the second night. It was the third night. I don't remember what the second day was, but I do remember the third day was when he finally dropped the. So he sneaks in and he sleeps over, and he like brings all of his stuff upstairs. So nobody heard him. It's like whatever. And so he sleeps over, and then in the morning, his phone starts blowing up at like 5:30 a.m. And I'm like, who's that? He's like, oh, it's my ex-wife. And I'm like, oh, does she need something? Is everything okay? And he said she's flipping out because of all of my credit card transactions. I'm like, well, I thought you guys are separated. And then he goes into this long, winding story about how they have things that they are splitting, and they can't separate their checking account until their court date finalizes the divorce. And until then, they have to track each other's income in the same checking account so that when they go 50-50, it's fair. And I'm like, oh, so why does she care how much you're spending or where you are, any of that stuff? He's like, I don't know, and she just apologized. Maybe it's because she knows I went out drinking from maybe it was like where the credit card transactions were. I'm like, oh, okay. So then a couple days go by, and he takes me on another date, and he was like paying it cash only. Cash only. And the first place he brought me to was like this hole in the wall, disgusting dive bar, and it smelled like cat piss. And I'm like, why would you bring me here? He's like, because it has a gorgeous view. I'm like, and there's like a million other places in this vicinity that have a gorgeous view that don't smell like cat piss. So can we just leave? So he basically got me and him a drink for no reason. And then he took me to this really cool place with like fancy cocktail beverages. And I want to say like this was the last time. No, we went on other dates. But all I remember is he ended up getting really weird on the phone. So like this is what happened. So he dropped me off at 8 p.m. and said he had stuff to do. And so I went live because I'm a live streamer. And then he blew up my phone saying that he was Googling me, Adrielle plus boyfriend, to see if there was anything about us on the internet. And I'm like, why would there be anything about us on the internet? He's like, I don't know, but then I saw you and a guy in the video search. And I'm like, oh? He's like, is that your boyfriend? And I said, no. He's like, I need to see you. And I'm like, okay. So he drove back to my house and parked in my driveway. And I went downstairs and sat in his car for like an hour, 2 hours. It was like literally 10 p.m. when he got there. And he like said he missed me. Oh, and he said he loved me, by the way. Not that night, but like the night before. And I said it back because we had this like insane chemistry. But yeah. And then he said he loved me in the car, but then he said he was getting really angry and jealous imagining the video he saw of me and another guy. Anyway, and then he also said some things that I'm not sharing on here. But then so then like we were sitting in his car for like until like 11, and my kids were asleep anyway. So I snuck him in my house, and he slept over again. And then he left in the morning after my kids went to school and stuff. But then like we kept talking on the phone, texting, all that stuff, and a couple days go by. This now had been already a week. He says that he realizes he can't date anyone right now because he doesn't have it together, and I need someone who can invest time and everything into me, and he can't do that because he has to process his divorce. Now, you comment below if you think that he's a liar. I don't think he's a liar. I don't think so. He's like 100% about to like finalize the divorce. But it's just like, why do you guys lie about being single? If this guy would have put in the middle of divorce court on his Tinder bio, I would have swiped left. I wouldn't have even like let it cross my mind. And I would have never swiped right. It's just like how shady guys are. And like the fact that he lied about being in divorce court, he lied about where he was living. And then he paid for our one last date in cash. Seems sus. Comment below, what do you think?